Thank you very much, Ajuri.
Thank you so much,
I would have loved to unpack that, but let's...
As in,
go ahead.
you know, the truth is, and as I enjoy your delivery, you know, your oratory. I was excited at your appointment, but listening to you today, I feel that you're trying to bring Nigeria to where you are. You're not coming to meet Nigerians where they are. And we really need you to meet Nigerians where they are, because we're all rooting for this administration to work. If it works, it pays us. I'm going to be asking you a question away from the economy to a bit of controversy regarding following the rule of law or not the rule of law, specifically about Nnamdi Kanu, also about Governor Emefiele, as well as Abdulrasheed Bawa. So we have the challenge with IPOB, the CBN governor, and the EFCC. And where is our president's body language concerning how to resolve this in a way that still complies with the rule of law?
Very much. First of all, thank you for your appreciation of the humble work that I do. But let me say that we should also be mindful not to underestimate the capacity of our people by accident. Because I think there's a tendency to think that maybe because of the fluidity of how I speak, that people are not understanding me. I can assure you, my sister, in the marketplace, when people comment on what they see on TVC channels, when they hear me on radio, I speak the same way. They understand what I'm saying. In fact, I intentionally go in to do Q&As where I'm taking direct questions in real time from Nigerians. And when I do that, they show me. They may not sound like me. They may not have the oratorical gift that God has given me in some cases, right? But by their response, I can tell that they fully understand what I'm saying. Nigerians are very brilliant people. Even those who did not have the privilege that some of us had to go and go all the way through university education and all of that, they still have the innate brilliance to be able to understand the level of discussion that we're having. So that's on the one hand. On the other hand, let me say that you know, on the issue of how we can on the issue of the rule of law, I think that on the various, if you take one case at a time of the individuals you mentioned, you will find that there are legal processes that are playing out in each of those cases. So, for example, you cite Emefiele, for example. That process is currently on appeal. All right, so it's under appeal. It's not as if there's some judgment hanging somewhere that is not being challenged, and you know, and somebody is just you know, being kept in a box somewhere. That's not what the situation is. Then in the case of Nnamdi Kanu, that is something where you have a lot of obviously political intrigue and the like. We know the history of that case. We know that President Muhammadu Buhari tried the political solution, right? Where you had, I'm not going to mention names, but Nigerians know that there was a serving senator who's still in the Senate who made himself a surety to Nnamdi Kanu at that time, saying, look, nothing will happen. This guy is going to be safely in his house, and I can assure you with my name that as a surety that he's going to be in his house. What now happened? He went to Europe, and then the next thing we know, he's in Europe doing radio message, ordering the burning down of even your office while you guys were in the studio preparing to get to work. Your office was getting burnt down on the orders of somebody who was from Europe, who was supposed to have been out on a bail and all of that. The point here is that there are processes playing out. Some people want a political solution to that. Other people want the legal process to play out. And we'll see how Mr. President decides to go about that. But clearly, Mr. President is very much aware of the fact that there is a need to allow the legal process to play out, and he fully understands the history of that particular case. In the case of the former EFCC chairman, it's the same thing. There's no, to my knowledge, judgment saying this must happen or that must happen, and it's not being challenged in the court. So let's allow the legal processes to play out. I always advise Nigerians as much as possible to try and tamp down sentiment and emotion when we are assessing issues that are black and white in terms of law, in terms of how processes should play. Because as a society, our tendency is on one hand to say, you know, we want systems to work. We want institutions to work. We don't want strongmen. We don't want this. We don't want that, right? We have that position. But then as a society, you follow the public analysis and you find out that the same Nigerians who are asking for strong institutions and for processes to play out, irrespective of political interference, are now championing the cause of political interference, saying that the institutions, no, they shouldn't work. We like this guy's face. Oh, he's from this region, so we should make sure that, oh, he's our kinsman, so legal process and institutions shouldn't matter again. We should go and interfere and show that we're more powerful than the institution. What do we want? Where do we want to go to? There should be integrity to where, in terms of our arguments, in terms of what we want as a society. And this is the challenge that all of us should agree that, look, if we're going to build our institutions, let's agree that we're building it. But let's not pick and choose when we want institutions to work and when we want big man politicians to interfere in those processes.
Multiple media reports. We heard that El-Rufai withdrew his interest in getting a ministerial role and went ahead to nominate a replacement. Can you confirm or refute this story that is going around?
Unfortunately, I do not. As I'm sitting here, I have no official word on that. I did see the report. I absolutely did see the report in an online news publication, just the way everybody else did. But I have no idea about the details of it or whether it's true or whether it's false. It's the first time I'm even being asked about it. But I do believe that probably the Department of State Security would be in a vantage position to be able to make a very clear statement on whether or not that is true.
Ajuri, let me ask you another question. This is a question that's close to my heart because many Nigerians in my circle believe in the renewed hope agenda. You know, many believe that this government is trying to buy back trust from Nigerians. How far, or do you think, how far have you gone, or do you plan to go in ensuring that the various arms of government are aligned with this agenda or vision? Because recently, the Senate President trended for saying that they are collecting, no constitutionally approved, is it stipends or tokens to their accounts as they go to enjoy their holidays. Now, we understand that this is obviously constitutionally approved, statutorily available for them. But in view of what we as Nigerians are going through, and in view of how hard things are for us, we are adjusting. Do you think the other arms of government or other leaders, political leaders, are aligned, or do they believe in this renewed hope, or are they also adjusting, or are they not?
You know, I don't even know. Sometimes I'm at a loss, you know. On the one hand, I am the official spokesperson of the president. And when I heard those comments, I understood, because I know personally the personality of the Senate President, Senator Godswill Akpabio. I understand the jocular, humorous nature of his person, you know, and probably he felt it was a tongue-in-cheek statement and all of that. But there's such a big and large gap between that kind of a statement and the mental and psychological disposition of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu on these notions, that it's when I read it, I just said, this is not. I mean, we're supposed to be representatives of the people in the National Assembly, right? So the representatives, whether senators or House of Rep members, they ought to be more in touch, more in tune with what their people are facing than anybody else. In some ways, even more than the president. Those comments clearly did not reflect that. And I think that hopefully the backlash from Nigerians on that issue will be enough to sober up some of our elected officials in the National Assembly to know that people are not laughing now. People are not looking at how they're going to pay 7 million naira to go to London and see their children who are in universities and all of that. People are hurting. And so it's important for those who seek political power, seek political office, to fully understand what Nigerians are facing. But I can assure you that His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu would not have been laughing at that statement at all.
he followed your, he fell, I mean, the Senate President followed your hand, right? I hope you got the joke. Ajuri, did you get the joke?
So, so.
Go ahead, okay.
All right, so I wanted to take you to a question I've asked a few times, and since I know that you are closer to the president than I am, you might be able to help us convey this particular question. Nigerians want to know how the government is specifically cutting costs in governance. And while I might not be able to, you cannot answer for the House of Assembly, you can answer for the presidency. What is the presidency and the president doing to cut the cost of governance as it applies to the executives? Because we were all shocked at the number of people that got nominated for ministerial lists, that this was the biggest list, not when we're trying to cut costs. How would you address the mindset of the president now? And we hope you help us convey that we want to know in clear terms and naira and kobo how he's cutting costs.
Fantastic question. So let's take this bit by bit. On the one hand, yes, the nomination of ministers, there has been some public reaction to the effect that, are these not too many and things like that. And we understand the thinking, of Nigerians who have expressed some trepidation or caution about that. But for those of us who have the privilege of engaging with Mr. President, we fully understand that what he's trying to do and what he is doing is to professionalize government. He wants to enhance specialization within our federal ministries, departments, and agencies. And part of that has to do with the fact that he came in and recognized that the current structure of government is too condensed. So you have one ministry, for example, ministries like Ministry of Works and Housing. Housing is a big deal in Nigeria. It's not a small thing. We're talking of where Nigerians are putting their head at night and all of that, where the difference between whether you're sleeping outside or sleeping under a shelter is under the authority of institutions like this, and is being conjoined with Works that is managing all federal roads in the country. What Mr. President said is, look, it's in the best short to medium term and long term interest of Nigerians for us to have one minister who is in charge of each segment of these very massive component parts of what were very loaded ministries before, probably a bit too burdensome for one individual actor and the like as it was before, to say, look, if we have one person that's dedicated to housing as against one person trying to juggle and manage the same 24 hours we all have between two major priorities, let's have one person deal with each one. That way we can get maximum value and maximum attention paid to the problems within those individual sectors. It's the wisdom of the president. He understood that there would be some public reaction, that some people will be unhappy with the optics of it and all of that, but he recognized that this is in the interest of the country and he took that decision. So there are several ministries like that. The Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, disaster management, and I think social development or something like that. There are three different components there that you can break up into individual pieces. The Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, same thing. You can have Ministry of Agriculture on one hand and Ministry of Rural Development on another hand, that deals with the rural economy, that deals with rural infrastructure and the like. So this is the case across several ministries, and the president understands this, and that's why he chose to create specialization and bring in a few more hands to deal with the new structure of government. Now, with that said, as we split these ministries, I want to emphasize this point. We are not having to now employ a whole bunch of new bureaucrats and civil servants. That's the mistake people are making. Just because you split ministries doesn't mean you have to now add to your recurrent. No. What we're going to do is we have an existing pool of oftentimes redundant senior directors in various ministries, duplication of roles amongst various directors, assistant directors, deputy directors. They will now be split across these ministries so that you don't have all of this excessive duplication because of over-recruitment in the past. We'll be able to actually put people to work that have for years now have just been in their offices reading newspapers at the expense of Nigeria's economy. So it's a good thing for the country. What I will say also is that in terms of saving government expenditure, the president has already said, and he means it, that he's dusting off the Aronsai report. we are going to restructure our MDAs. Fundamentally, I'm not just talking of splitting ministries now. I'm talking about what we do with this massive pool of redundant staff, and how we can empower them, not just throw them out and leave them to their own devices or leave them to their fate. No, but we're going to develop a plan of transition so that we can bring down our recurrent and also totally reform our recruitment process. So it's not a matter of, oh, this minister is from Rivers State. As a result, he'll be looking for people from, he'll be looking at people from different local government areas of the state to flood into the federal civil service as a form of political reward and all of that. Those days are over. We want professionals. We want first-class graduates. We want the best of the Nigerian youth to be going into the civil service as against just the private sector. There's a lot that has to be done.
Ajuri, you need like a 3-hour show with you because this 1-hour show is not enough. Go ahead, Toby.
Okay, so speaking about continuity, one of the things that we notice over time is that a new administration sometimes forgets all what a previous administration has done and just comes up with new things. So, for instance, as an SME in Nigeria, there was a policy that came up in the last administration where I was a beneficiary of, where the presidency nominated MSMEs for the Award of Excellence. I was a nominee for that too, where grants were given, cars were given, and other things, laptops were also given. And I also have a couple of friends that benefited from that. Are there continuity plans in place, for instance, for such program in place with this present administration?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I think what happens is, again, in our public analysis, there is a tendency towards short memory. I think Nigerians know that there's a tendency to kind of forget the distant past in terms of what the situation in the country had been with respect to some of these programs. So, for example, if you look at MSME capitalization, people forget. Before 2015, I have challenged everybody, even during campaign and after campaign. I've challenged people. I said, look, before 2015, can you tell me, in this Nigeria that all of us have been living in for such a long time, can you tell me where an MSME owner, right, on a mass scale, we're talking hundreds of thousands, millions of MSMEs, could go and get single-digit interest rate loan to finance their businesses, to expand their operations? Before 2015, it was impossible. You will try and go into one of these generation banks, UBA, Fidelity, and all the ones we know. You go in. By the time they tell you what is involved, what you need to put on ground in terms of collateral, what the interest rate will be at over 25, 30%, you just walk out shaking your head. It was a practical impossibility for MSMEs to get any kind of lending anywhere in this country. It was when President Muhammadu Buhari came in that he brought in NERSAL and CBN interventions for our farmers, over several million farmers benefiting from anchor borrowers programs, low interest finance. Then in addition, MSMEs, not just farmers now, talking the small mom and pop shops in our markets nationwide, selling textiles, selling this one, selling that one. They were able to now go through, get small loans through the Development Bank of Nigeria, DBN, through the Bank of Industry that had been massively capitalized under President Muhammadu Buhari, and many, many others. These were things that were unheard of before 2015. They were just good ideas. It was President Buhari and the APC that put it on ground. What Mr. President has done now is to accelerate that, to say, look, we're going to enhance our MSME capitalization efforts. We're going to ensure that Bank of Agriculture, Bank of Industry, Development Bank of Nigeria, and several other programs, CBN Anchor Borrowers Program, that we expedite and enlarge the capitalization of these particular facilities for Nigerians to enjoy. So that's on the one hand. So there is continuity. That's the point I'm making. And there is a starting point as to when these programs came. And I can assure you, it was not a single day before May 29, 2015. It was.
All right. Oh, Ajuri, I hope you're still there. I think we lost you for a second.
I'm here.
Okay, sorry about that. So the topic had a question because we have very little time left, so I need to throw in maybe 2 questions at the same time. Let me give you one, and I'll take the other one.
Yes, so I wanted to ask about the Boso's appointment. So we remember that Boso's screening generated a lot of controversy last week. And it was based on the fact that he had said some things, and Nigerians commended the senators for being very forgiving, but wanted to understand what was what pre-qualified him to be nominated in the first place from the president's perspective.
And let me throw in my own question because of time. So aside from the Dr. Bosuim Tijani's question, also the Southeast are complaining that they only got 5 slots in the ministerial nomination. How does your president react to that, or how do you react to that?
So, of course, in the compilation of any cabinet, the Constitution is very clear, which is that each state must be able to produce a minister of the federal cabinet, right? All of those constitutional requirements have been satisfied. Yes, we can. There's always this tendency to. There's this movement of the goalposts we see on some of these issues, right? Where we'll say, okay, he may have done this one, but what about this one? When he does this one, what about this one? So, for example, now, you would have a situation where, let's just assume for a moment, Mr. President put in place 15 ministers from the 5 southeastern states, for example. Let's just say 3 per state, right? Another person will be able to say, okay, yes, fine. He produced 15 ministers from 15 Nigerian ministers from Igbo land and all of that. But look at the security agencies. There's not a single Igbo man or Igbo woman in the security agencies. Oh, look at CBN. There's not a CBN governor from Igbo. There's always a movement of the goalposts. That marginalization discussion is never satisfied. That's the point. I'm saying this as somebody who has been in government, operating in this capacity now for 8 years, engaging in questions and answers on these issues. There is always, take it from me, there is always a movement of the goalposts. Nothing is ever good enough. So what I will just say on this is that constitutional requirement has been satisfied. There are many federal appointments that are still coming, big ones as well, that will still come. And I think it's way too early in the day for any region to say that it is being shortchanged. Let's watch and see how government forms. And then when it's fully formed, we can now come to the table and people can now present their opinions.
Who, no matter what you say, no matter how you say, will say you're still lying. You know how Nigerians are very cynical. As Tokwe had said earlier, we've been battered, bruised, lied to for many years, And even when we see a government who is trying to put things in place, and from the APC perspective, it's like things are going to go worse before it gets better. So where we are right now, Naira was 950 Naira to the dollar, So things are really bad. So no matter what you say now, there are cynics who are going to say, they've started lying again. See all the grammar they are speaking. They're not even listening to what you're saying. How do we carry those kind of people along in helping them see better? Hopefully they can do better.
Mariah, this is such an important question you've just asked. Because, you see, my first press conference as the official spokesperson of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, I took my time to explain to Nigerians that we will not do business as usual. We recognize that we have, when I say we, I'm talking of public sector in Nigeria, the Nigerian government as a bloc, not party, not individual now, just the notion of Nigerian government. We have earned the skepticism of Nigerians. Nigerians have every reason not to believe us. We're talking decades now of maladministration. And even the pockets of good that we have done, compared to the mountains of bad that has been done, it's almost inconsequential in the minds of Nigerians. So when President Muhammadu Buhari completed the second Niger bridge, built 5 new international airports, put new railways in the southwest, new Lekki port in the southwest, and all the other things that have been done by the previous administration, you find that he still had to grapple with decades worth of mistrust, decades worth of anger, and all of that from the Nigerian populace. So it's something that is ongoing. But what we are going to do is we are going to level with Nigerians and ensure that from the position of government, particularly those of us who are spokespeople, media functionaries, I said it in my initial press conference, we will not be arrogant. We will not talk down on Nigerians. We will not be those spokesmen that are condescending. They think they're higher than everybody. They're better than everybody because they're in political office. We know where we came from. So what we are saying is that we will level with Nigerians, we will be humble in our approach, and we will be honest with Nigerians. So what we believe is that if we do that, if we level with people, and we treat Nigerians with respect, we don't insult them, we don't show this condescending mindset, arrogant attitude toward them, that there's a mutual respect that develops where people will listen to you because they know that you respect them. And I do respect Nigerians. And spokesmen under this government know that under the leadership of the president, there will be zero tolerance for any of that arrogant, condescending and insulting nonsense, online or offline. So for us, the focus is going to be on saying, look, this is what we're doing. This is what we're going to deliver. This is the timeline that we're going to deliver on. So that once we meet that timeline, you will now say, yes, this government is building trust with us. If we fail to meet that timeline, then Nigerians will rightly say, this government is the same as all those other years of maladministrators and all of that. So that is the focus. Openness, humility, and constant direct communication with Nigerians, telling them what we can do and what we can't do. But what we will not do is we will not be baited and tempted to tell Nigerians what is not true. Because the temptation, let me just give you a practical example. The economic crisis that the country is currently facing, the temptation on a spokesperson like me is to come out and say, all is going to be well in a week. Everything will be okay and everybody will see some form of succor. I want to be able to say that, but I don't say that because I'm disciplined and I'm determined to be honest with our people. So I'll tell you, look, this thing is going to be 6 to 9 months on the first phase of CNG because that is the timeline that we were given by NIPCO and we're going to deliver that timeline. But I will not tell you what is true, but sometimes Nigerians, out of their pain, right, and their frustration, which is understandable, they're saying, look, we want you to tell us what you're doing today. And I want to tell you what we can do today, but I don't want to lie to you, because I want to build trust with you. So that's always the challenge that we have. But I can assure you, we're going to do things very differently.
It's on social media for you. Is it true that the president is living in a 2-bedroom apartment in Aso Villa?
that is true. The president is in the glass house, and it is a very small place.
Wow, interesting. All right, let's take a few comments on social media before I release Ajuri, do you have any comments for us on social media? Good ones? Anyone?
Safa Lofa says, kudos to Ajuri for the convincing, elaborate expression of national issues. We nevertheless advise the vigorous monitoring system to make the good ideas work.
Fantastic point that comments highlighted. Monitoring. See, all this English you've spoken, which you say Nigerians understand, which I really hope they do, will only be more effective when we have efficient monitoring system in place. And I'd like you to touch on that before we wrap up in news 1 minute.
I want to understand. You said monitoring, right? Monitoring.
Yeah, monitoring. Yes, monitoring. Yeah, monitoring, ensuring that the policies in place as you begin the 6 to 9 months plans. Is there a system in place to monitor to ensure the delivery of these various points that the president has promised us?
Absolutely, which is why the President Nnamdi is in prime position now to empower the Presidential Delivery Unit on our infrastructure projects and on policy oversight. You'd find that, yes, in the past there had been presidential aides, presidential advisors. But if you look very closely, and people aren't really, there are so many issues in the country now, and of course with the Niger crisis outside too, that the nuanced, detailed differences between administrations, people aren't really giving it the attention it requires. Let me give you a practical example. In previous administrations, yes, you had special advisors that carried out their functions and all of that and all of that. What Mr. President has done differently, President Nnamdi, he's doing something that he did in Lagos, which is that the position of special advisor to the president, which I currently hold in media and publicity, but in other sectors such as health, such as trade and others, right? He has put in place people that in other climes they would have even been the ministers. But he put them in place as special advisor to the president, very intentionally. Because what he's doing is unlike before, where you go to Federal Executive Council meeting, and it's only ministers and the president and the vice president and secretary to government, essentially, that will be speaking, right, during those meetings. What is going on now is that it's being, Federal Executive Council under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu will be treated as a whole of the executive branch cabinet, not just ministers. So what's going to happen now is you're going to have a special advisor on, for example, it could be economy, it could be trade, it could be anything, who will be contributing at the same frequency as an honorable minister of the same sector. But the difference is that that special advisor to the president is the president's eyes and ears over what is happening in that particular ministry and those departments and agencies under that ministry. So now the minister is not just a god on his own. Now it's a situation where the special advisor is the president's check on all of the ministers across the various sectors. It's very, very strategic. When we talk about monitoring, when we talk about delivery, it's something that this president has made a unique characteristic of his administration that no other administration had.
We're out of time, Ajuri. I'm sorry, we are completely out of time. We spent 2 hours, almost 2 hours with Ajuri, and it's still not enough. But definitely, we'll bring you back. Thank you very much for joining. But especially, you have an appointment with us in October concerning Dangote Refinery. I'll write it down. If we don't see you, if Dangote Refinery doesn't come up by October, Ajuri, we will come here and you will get it from the ladies of YourView. I guarantee it. All right.
Thank you very much. I'm your servant, Mariah.
We'll see you Monday. Bye for now.